Mr. Weibel, thank you very much for coming. I'm just curious to know a bit more about you and also your life before Siemens. So a little bit of a potted history quickly around your career leading up to you joining the business, if you don't mind.
Yes, it's my pleasure. As a background, I'm an electrical engineer and then passed the European examination as a patent attorney, did the German qualification as patent attorney, and have since always been working in industry. First of all, I started with ABB in Switzerland. Then I left ABB for a Swiss-German group of companies called George Fisher, where I restructured the IP department. Then they called me back for ABB Switzerland, where I took over the lead of the IP department. And then in 2007, I was nominated as Chief IP Counsel for ABB Limited worldwide. And since 2013, I'm now working for Siemens as Chief IP Counsel.
What brought you here?
It was the challenge to lead one of the biggest, if not the biggest, industrial IP department in the world. And Siemens has really a very, very nice tradition in terms of patents. As you probably know, Werner von Siemens was an inventor himself. And patents and IP enjoy a lot of understanding in Siemens, and that's great for me to get this job.
It's a huge challenge in many respects. Is that what appealed?
Of course, because it's huge. It's huge in terms of numbers. It's huge in terms of staff. We're talking about, in total, as Siemens as a group of companies, we're talking about nearly 500 people that work for IP. And in terms of numbers of patent filings, we have a portfolio of over 100,000 granted patents and pending patent applications. Year by year, we file 3,700 to 4,000 new patent applications. So that's really a huge challenge to deal with.
A very complex challenge?
Yes, it is complex because I personally feel that the importance of IP in a digital world becomes more and more important. And IP rights maybe have a little bit changed their role, where in former times it was more Daniel Düsentrieb approach of inventions, where you invented something really basic. Now it's more a contribution to a digital ecosystem and to make sure that you can protect your share and your competitive advantage in this field.
Tell me a little bit more about the goal that you're moving towards. What is the plan? What's your strategy?
The strategy of IP for Siemens is what we call to create values for the businesses of Siemens. So we call our strategy value-driven IP strategy. That means we would like to harvest the inventions and to protect them by IP rights so that they are able to create value for the company. And that's, of course, a big challenge, and that's a difference to what I call an invention-driven IP policy or IP strategy, where the patent attorneys, so to speak, wait for inventors to have good ideas, and then they take the ideas and protect them by IP rights. I would like to have a much more proactive, interactive approach, where the patent attorneys go out, integrate themselves into the innovation process, talk to the researchers, to the developer, and harvest and grasp the ideas that have, understand what the business model of the business is, understand where the competitive advantages are, and then actively place valuable IP rights on these sweet spots. And by that, I would like to increase the value we create for the business with such IP rights.
Is this part of the drive towards a quality-driven strategy over quantity?
Exactly. That's exactly the main point of quality versus quantity strategy. It doesn't really create any value whether you have thousands of patents or whether you have one single very valuable patent. And that's what I'm striving for.
Can you just give me a sense of what might be the consequences if you don't get this right, if you don't overcome these challenges? What impact might that have on the business?
Then we just pile up patents where at the end, I have to say, there's not really value in it, and we have high maintenance cost, and we cannot add value to the business by protecting our competitive advantage. But we just pile up patents, thousands of patents, and that's not worthwhile the money.
But what might be the consequence to the business if that continues, or that was the case?
Then, they have high costs, and then they cannot protect their competitive advantage, and that's the challenge. And to protect the competitive advantage, you must understand how the business model works, where the USPs are, and then you must interlink that and place your IP rights exactly on this spot. And in order to do that, we also need to have a tool to measure quality and to measure quality of patent portfolios.
So how did you do this job before PatentSight came along?
Yeah, actually, it's not like this, so to speak. I introduced PatentSight or just a few years or a few months after I started working for Siemens, because my predecessor had a clear volume strategy. We were regularly number 1 and number 2 in European patent filings. But coming from a competitor, to be very honest, I had a high impression of the volume of Siemens patent portfolio, but not so much of the quality of the patent portfolio. And therefore, I thought we need to introduce a measure and a tool to measure the quality of the patent portfolio, because only what you measure will be improved. And in that respect, PatentSight helped us a lot. There are some specific features of PatentSight which convinced me that it's a good solution to measure quality. One really important aspect is that PatentSight came out of a university, so it has an academic objective background. It's not just commercial background as many other tools and many other applications have. So PatentSight has this academic background, which was quite important for me. Then, as I mentioned, it's important not to look at the absolute figure of a quality index right at the moment. It's more important to see how you develop, and how you develop in particular vis-a-vis your competition. And that also is offered by PatentSight, because they have the possibility to show the development on a comparable basis, meaning PatentSight invests a lot on investigating and monitoring how companies change in terms of acquisitions and divestitures, etc. And that can, of course, influence the value of your portfolio dramatically, because if you acquire a company or if you divest a part of your company, then your numbers are immediately affected. And PatentSight is able to monitor the patent quality on a comparable basis. So they take these changes into account and very closely monitor how companies develop, how they consist, what parts go in, what parts go out. So that was also very important for me. And then in terms of the indexes that PatentSight uses to measure quality. And there are also differences how patents are cited in the US, how patents are cited in Germany, how patents are cited in China, for example. And PatentSight also takes these differences into considerations and adapts the indexes accordingly. And by that, you get, as far as possible, an objective measure of the quality of your patent portfolio.
How did you validate that PatentSight was correct with its metrics? Did you challenge them?
Of course, we challenged them by cross-checking whether the patents that we feel internally are our most valuable, whether they also score high in PatentSight. And the same we did for our competitors' patents, where we selected a few really high impact patents and then cross-checked whether they also have a high quality index in PatentSight. And there was quite a good match.
Can you talk me through the early experiences then, once you decided to bring PatentSight on board? What were the first steps? How did you begin the process of change?
So we first introduced our change in the strategy, and then we were looking for a tool that could accompany and give us the measure to, or a tool that measures whether our change in strategy is successful. So that was kind of the sequence. I was lucky that the managing board trusted me and trusted the PatentSight tool, that it is objective and that we can increase our quality index by harvesting more valuable inventions and by creating broader and more important patents. So, and in order to see this effect, it took some time, I have to say, maybe 2 years, where we really could see that after the introduction of our value-driven strategy, that the quality indexes measured by PatentSight went dramatically up. And then I felt quite relieved, I have to say.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the relationship with the PatentSight team and just describe to me what that has been like?
The relation with the PatentSight team is great, I have to say, because we also had our own understanding of how a tool should work, what we need, what our needs are for a tool, what changes we need. And all these requests, change requests, etc., have always been very well received and very well worked on in the course of the time that we're using PatentSight.
And in what way did PatentSight mirror your strategy of moving towards quality over quantity? Just a few words around that.
I mean, measuring the quality of a patent is really a very tricky thing, because at the end you have to say the quality of a patent is measured in court, but only 5% at max go to the court, are litigated. So you need to have a, let's call it, indirect measure of the quality of a patent. And the PatentSight offered a great approach and a reliable and objective approach to measure the quality of single and of a whole portfolio of patents.
So did this quality strategy and the development of the IP portfolio lead to a better return on investment?
Yes, indeed. I think we have a better return on investment on our IP rights. Maybe not so much in terms of pure money, license income, but in terms of broader exploitation and commercialization of our IP rights by using them for joint ventures, by using them to get new orders, etc. And these secondary effects are probably much more important, and that we indeed can measure, because exploitation has become one of the 3 pillars of our strategy.